Muchas gracias. This has been a very, very inspiring conference with wonderful presentations by young, brilliant experts on cities and the future of cities, with great senior experts on all aspects of green buildings. It has been an exciting conference in which much more than the energy performance of buildings has been the focus, but also the performance of the people inside the buildings. Social equity issues have been raised more than ever before. Human health issues have been raised like never before. It has been a very, very inspiring conference, and I'm very, very pleased to have the opportunity to be part of it. At the very opening of the conference, the deputy mayor of Barcelona made the point that with all these experts and urban planners, he asked, please let us remain Barcelona. Please don't try to change us into Berlin, I think he said. And yet in America, we would be happy to have many of our cities learn from Berlin. And I am impressed by the degree to which many people here are open also to serious exchange, ideas that have worked in Hong Kong and in Sweden are indeed also ideas that will work in other places as well. It's just that we need to retain our identity. I am going to take some time to introduce you to the current work agenda of the U.S. Green Building Council. We have a large series of demonstration projects throughout the world. In 150 countries, we now have projects that are certified by our standard. And we are also coming out of our own conference where we had about 20,000 people in New Orleans in the United States. And I was very struck, as were some of my colleagues here, by the degree to which some of the issues are so similar. Again, social equity, identity of the community, the role of cities. So I was very impressed by the degree to which the green building movement is beginning to rally around issues that I think are the most important issues. For the longest time, the U.S. Green Building Council, in my opinion, failed to fully acknowledge the importance of buildings, green buildings, as a living, breathing form of performance, that green buildings were certified, but oftentimes the certification was for the aspiration of the building, not the actual performance. And so at the U.S. Green Building Council, the biggest focus for us at the moment is making sure that we are collecting data from the 50,000 projects we have, sharing that data with the world, and sharing data about the performance of buildings. And our newest tool that we are trying to educate people about around the world is the LEED dynamic plaque. That is both a symbol but also a very complex and valuable tool for managers of buildings to ensure that the building is actually meeting its claimed goal for being green. The U.S. Green Building Council was formed to combat greenwash and bogus claims about buildings, and we believe that this focus on performance is, in fact, the most important evolution in what we're trying to do. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later in my presentation. But you'll see these plaques in many of the platinum buildings throughout the world, and it's truly a sign of commitment by the owner that they're willing to have their building tested daily based on input from the tenants, based on input relative to water use and energy use and indoor air quality and the transportation habits of the occupants. Is the building green right now? I've been trying to make the case, sometimes with a suspicious audience, that the green building certification in the United States that you might remember is changing dramatically. And the focus, for example, of the 150,000 homes that we have certified, 44% of those are government-subsidized affordable homes. And again, it speaks to a growing focus in the United States, which we're very interested in working with you all to see how we can do a better job in other countries. And many of the speakers at this conference were very, very helpful in explaining specific challenges for social housing throughout the world. One of the ways that we have tried to demonstrate our commitment to a particular community has been in Haiti, where, working with Bill Clinton and the Clinton Foundation, we are breaking ground as we speak on a home for children in Haiti, and trying to create something inspiring that will be an inspiration to anyone who has the chance to live there, even briefly, but also the Haitians that will work on the project to learn about resilient, sustainable architecture. At our conference and at this conference, there was a refreshing focus on the health aspects of green building. And I was particularly inspired by a young architect who shared data about his own family's reaction to the changing environment of the home that he had designed, and ways in which it improved the quality of their life. And of course, while that is just one data set, it was very inspiring the way it improved his son's asthma, and it allowed their family to have a lot better acoustical environment, sleep better, and he did a beautiful job talking about the health aspects of the green building that he had designed here in Spain. Another area that is one that's evolving in the United States is our effort to try to take the lessons of this large demonstration project of certified buildings and make the case to local governments that some minimum requirements for a green building should be incorporated into the law. Now, unfortunately, in the United States, we don't have a national building code. And so, unlike most of your countries, it's much harder for us to make progress, and we have to do it state by state. So back in 2000, California and a few cities in Texas, the state of New York, they had green building incentives. But I'm very pleased that we've made progress now, and that by 2014, all but a very few number of states now have specific policies to advance green building. And this is a source of great inspiration to us. And we're working now with the UN, with the C40 cities, to try to help make progress on incentives throughout the world. The focus on cities that I mentioned earlier is, of course, a sign of maturity in the green building movement. The ability to create zero-energy communities occurs through a community-wide strategy, not just building by building. And I was struck, one of the interesting group of press that were here, one of them kept telling me, there is nothing inspiring about a zero-energy building, Roger, nothing inspiring. And I said, well, you're absolutely right. When a zero-energy building is built, which it has been built now repeatedly, it is no longer a vision of the future, it's right now. And so maybe that's less inspiring. I personally think it's kind of amazing, but I think there's a way in which we have to keep looking at the future with more ambition. This is my own city, Manhattan, New York City, during the blackout with the terrible storms that forced that city to realize how important it was to focus on resilience in the face of climate change induced greater storms and in this case flooding that took out most of downtown New York for almost a day. At the U.S. Green Building Council, and I think it's the spirit here as well, we are trying to collaborate promiscuously. We want to be absolutely uninhibited in making sure that we're working together with other organizations. And at the U.S. Green Building Council, we are now also certifying to other standards. So, for example, the new WELL-certified standard for healthy buildings is a very exciting new development, which I think you'll be hearing a lot more about. Hundreds of some of the best doctors in the United States have been working. Deepak Chopra has been working on this system, and we're very proud that we'll have the opportunity to be certifying buildings to that standard throughout the world, as well as the PEER standard, which is for microgrids and the energy grids around buildings. So again, we're focusing on the community. GRESB, which is a tool for investors to ensure that their entire portfolio of buildings are green. So we're trying to focus on the full life cycle of the people that affect buildings, and also to focus on the individuals in the buildings and the energy that powers the buildings. When we talk about the future, we sometimes, in a sort of a joking way, have to realize that in order to sometimes move forward, we have to take risks, and many of the buildings that you have designed and that your friends have designed are buildings that give people the opportunity to experience something that maybe they didn't even know they wanted. And so Henry Ford is the famous quote that if he had simply asked Americans what they wanted, they would not have said cars, they would have just said faster horses, because they couldn't even imagine what a car would be. And so we similarly, Steve Jobs has made a very good living when he was alive on telling us all that we need these devices that we didn't know we needed. And again, that's what takes a certain amount of risk to do. Too often, our vision of the future is just a projection of our current prejudices. And so it takes really outside the box thinking to get beyond that. So for example, a vision of the future in the 1950s was that we would all be in spaceships and we would all have robots that would work for us. But if you look at this picture, this is like a U.S. suburban family in the 50s. The mom has, they have a maid, the mom doesn't work, the dad spends all his time driving around in his spaceship. There's nothing about this that's very modern or progressive. And so we always need to be cautious about whether we're thinking with enough vision about the future and not just limiting ourselves to our own prejudices. One of the ways that we're trying to make sure that we are not being too U.S.-centric in our thinking is by creating this roundtable with countries from around the world, some of the greatest experts, some of them here in this room, that have been helping us try to figure out an approach to certification that is global in scope, but is regional in terms of the issues, in terms of biosphere and ecological issues that are more regional. But of course, every single building, every single specific project is deeply, deeply local. And so you need that local, regional, and global approach. I don't think it's an either or. I think a lot of there's false choices between one or the other. Really, there has to be all three approaches. And of course, the ideas need to be fully vetted with major universities throughout the world. These are just a few with whom we're working now. We're working with over 30 universities, but these are just some from the United States and from Europe that are listed there. This just will give you a tiny bit more insight into what we're doing with our LEED dynamic plaque. If you came to the presentation I did in detail on that, you'll get that. If you didn't, we don't have time for me to do that now. So I'm going to skip that. It's actually the most interesting part of my presentation, but honestly, it's early in the morning. I'm happy to talk to people about that in more detail. It's an unbelievably interesting, with complex logarithms and inputs that are much more sophisticated than we've ever had before. With all the data, right now, the Green Building Information Gateway, or gbig.org, has more data about more green buildings than any other source in the world, far more data about buildings certified to other systems than LEED. So it has more data about non-LEED buildings than the LEED buildings, and we're taking that data and we're making sure that we can identify for individual cities what the state of their green building activity is. So in Beijing, information about China 3-star, information about LEED, as other systems begin to produce as many certifications as 3-star and LEED, we'll be adding those as well. Country by country market briefs. These are all on the website at the U.S. Green Building Council. Everything at the U.S. Green Building Council is open source, transparent. LEED and the related tools are available for people to look at and use. This is the part of the presentation I was encouraged not to present. This is the part where I tell you about how many buildings we've certified. But since people don't like that, I'm going to skip through that. Because of course it doesn't matter how many buildings you certify, it only matters how strong the environmental performance of the buildings are. But in America we like our big numbers, so that's why we have that there. The 150 countries and territories that are using green building standards, I want to talk just quickly a little bit about what we're learning from these buildings. The better building design, operations, what is actually being achieved in these buildings. And we've been working hard to make the outcomes of these buildings more discoverable through GBIG, through peer-reviewed papers. Last year, two of my colleagues presented a paper here on performance at the ACEEE. Other colleagues of mine did a paper, peer-reviewed paper, the LEED Plaque Unpacked, which analyzed energy efficiency credit achievement data from 9,000 projects between 2007 and 2013. The research was encouraging about the degree to which projects that pursued higher levels of certification did measurably higher levels of energy performance relative to ASHRAE 90.1, and the average for all of those projects was 25 to 30% higher than ASHRAE 90.1 baselines. So we're feeling that certification systems in general, including LEED, are really motivating projects measurably to improve their performance beyond what it would have been without the rating system engagement. The design is creating better energy performance, like I said, 25 to 30%. Also improving the use of measurement and verification techniques at these buildings by 300%. We found that because we have one of the strangest business plans at the U.S. Green Building Council, as people begin to love the system, we make it less pleasant for them to use every 3 years. So we make it more difficult, but one of the things we do is encourage them to do more measurement and verification, which they have been doing. I'm from a family of architects, and they find this slide very, very offensive and threatening. There are now more LEED professionals in the United States than licensed architects. And of course, the licensed architects are much more profound professional expertise. And of course, they are much more focused on deeper issues than the green professionals. But the green professionals become kind of like a conscience for the project team. And they keep asking, can we do this in a greener way? Can we do this in a greener, with greener impacts? And so I think that's become an important piece of the puzzle. And one of the things that I enjoin you to do is please join us in that effort. Please get engaged as a professional in addition to your engineering, architecture, and academic expertise. We are increasingly building up that infrastructure of experts by translating all of our materials ultimately we'll ultimately do it into 20 or 30 languages. The point I want to make at the end of this talk now, because I am at the end, are 2 points. First, that much of what we've tried to do to reform our efforts is a result of strong and outspoken criticism of our system. And no one at this conference is inhibited in telling me how lacking in various areas the LEED system is. And so one of the things that I'm proud of is that we have made progress and that we keep trying to improve our system. Winston Churchill once said that the U.S. can be counted on to do the right thing after exhausting all other options. It's a joke, laugh. Usted puede estar seguro en que los norteamericanos harán lo correcto después de haber intentado todo lo demás. And the other point I wanted to make is that these false conflicts between rating systems and between green building science, these are the elements of early phases of the green building movement. But I think now the green building movement is maturing into an extraordinary family of experts with mutual respect. And I will close simply by referencing one of my favorite quotes from Martin Luther King, who once said that the most important causes are those that cannot be accomplished in a single lifetime. And I think we can all take pride in the fact that we are involved in a cause that is greater than can be accomplished in our own lives. And as a result, we need a family. We need a family that includes the young technical experts that we're presenting at this conference. And we need also the father figures of the experts like Ray, who spoke at the beginning, and others who are really able to inspire the new generations. But we need a large family, we need to work together, and conferences like this do an extraordinary job of inspiring us to do that. Thank you very much.